the Torah, that's a numerical value of the Hebrew letter tet, the number 9, and we've seen how important the connection to the serpent that the Hebrew letter tet can represent, and the inverted womb, which means the womb ready to receive seed, and of course it's juxtaposed with the womb that the mem produces, which is also ready to receive seed. And we've compared what's taking place here in Leviticus chapter 25 with some occurrences of the first encounter where Adam and Eve were presented in Genesis chapter 3 with the opportunity, or the choice, if you will, to receive the seed of the serpent or not to. Now, what bothers me is that we want to denigrate Adam and Eve and say, my goodness, I would never have done what they did. On the other hand, you and I are in a far more corrupt physical body. We don't have any of the mental acuity that they did, and yet every day the enemy's speaking in the earth. And you and I hear those things, and rather than casting down every thought that exalts itself against the knowledge of Yah, the tree of life, what do? We entertain that seed, and we are just as impregnated with the seed of the serpent as Eve was with Adam at that encounter there in Genesis chapter 3. Well, let's look a little bit further at the word Gan and the word Eden. If you looked at their numerical value, the Gimel, Nun, Gan, Gimel is 3, Nun is 50, so it's 53. Eden, Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Ayin, Dalet, Nun, the numerical value is 124. And so if you add the two together, you have a number that's interesting, number 177. Well, this might not mean much to you until you look at that number 177 and find that it has the same numerical value as a word in your Strong's Concordant, okbah, and that word means deceitfulness and trickery. It's interesting that the root of that word akbah is the same as the root of the word Jacob, akev, which means heel. I have it spelled H-E-A-L, and that's a misspelling. It should be H-E-E-L, which is a hidden reference again to the prophecy of Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. Right there in Genesis chapter 2, when Yahweh's given instructions about the Garden of Eden, Adam understood the numerical value of these Hebrew words, Hebrew letters, and there is a telling prophecy in the name Gan Eden. Yahweh's telling him that Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, when the serpent's being cursed, and he said there's going to be a war between the seed, and you will bruise its heel. There's the root word, echav. Are you following me? So what happens in Genesis chapter 3 is in fact just that. The heel bruised by the serpent. And you find Jacob fulfilling that shadow picture. And then you see it again throughout the Torah, time after time. As a matter of fact, that Gimel, if you look at the Gimel, it looks as if it's the heel of a person's foot. And you can see that heel raised right there in front of the life, the Hebrew letter Nun. A prophecy again telling Adam and Eve, they were warned. You and I will have no excuse either. We've been told. Are you with me? Now let's look a little bit further at the word for Har, Behar, mountain. Of course, it does mean mountain, a high place or a hill. And if you add the feminine suffix, the Hebrew letter Hey, that Hebrew letter, again, it means revelation, something that's about to be revealed, but it also infers the ability to conceive seed. Well, you know that's what revelation is. When you have revelation imparted to you, you've just received seed. Are you following me? Turn to your neighbor and say, wow, that's revelation to me. So, that phrase, Behar, can literally infer that Mount Sinai was literally the place of conception. And again, I believe that was where the Garden of Eden was. And I believe Eden was the original place of conception. And just as surely as the serpent did everything he could to compromise the Garden of Eden, I promise you, he also did the very same thing there at Sinai, because you find while Moshe is on the mountain receiving the words from Yahweh that he would later write on tablets of stone, what did the children of Israel do? They engage in promiscuous acts sexual perversions with the golden calf. It was nothing less than the same encounter with the serpent seed that you see taking place in Genesis chapter 3. Well, that pattern was seen even before Genesis 3, and it was revealed to us in Isaiah chapter 14. And I've had people tell me, oh, that doesn't have anything to do with Lucifer and Hasatan and before his fall. My goodness, all you have to do is go back and read it and dissect it in the Hebrew language, and you'll see that that's exactly why he was cast down. And I got news for you. He's going to be cast down again from his abode in the atmospheric heavens to one more time be allowed this opportunity to compromise the mountain of Yah. Are you with me? Well, let's look at Isaiah 14 so we can kind of get a little bit more of an idea of what the method of operation is of the enemy, because if you want to really know how to combat your enemy, you need to know how he operates. Isaiah chapter 14, let's begin in verse 12. This is Father speaking to him. He says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? Well, why was he cast down? Why was he cut down? Because he said in his heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars. I will sit also upon the mountain of the congregation in the sides of the north. Now, when you look at that in the King James English, it doesn't really say anything other than this was a prideful and arrogant individual that had the audacity to think that he would go and sit on the very throne of Yah. But once you break it down in the Hebrew, that's bad enough. And I'll be honest with you, the Father was powerful enough that he would have kicked him out for that sort of rebellion. But I want to tell you something that's involved in the Hebrew language here that really stirred the nature of Yah, because this is involving the enemy's attempt to compromise the bride, the intimate chamber. That's why Father got upset and smoked him and kicked his butt down. Are you with me? Let me read this to you. The phrase, I will sit, in Hebrew is rendered, Strong's number 3427, yeshav. Of course, it means to sit, but it also infers to dwell with, as in marriage. How many of y'all remember the story of Esther, Haman, Mordecai, Xerxes the king? Do you remember the last occasion that Esther had the dinner party planned, and she invited Haman, and her husband Xerxes was there? And she tells the king of the plans to destroy her people that Haman has, and Xerxes, or Taxerus, whatever you want to call him, is so enraged that he runs out and he comes back, and you find Haman throwing himself on the mercy of Esther, and she had retreated to her bedroom. And when he comes back, he's so caught up with trying to plead and beg for mercy, he's in the bed of Esther. Well, he would have got by if he'd have been standing on the other side of the portico a little bit away from the bedchamber. But when that king comes in, he's already upset that the man's trying to kill off his wife's kinfolks. Now he comes by and finds him trying to ravish her in his own bed. Well, this is exactly the shadow picture of what's taking place right here. The enemy has the nerve to say, I am going to yeshav, I'm going to dwell with, as in marriage. Well, let's look at it. Break the word yeshav down, written with a yod, sheen, vav. Bait, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm trying to say vait and bet at the same time. Yod, sheen, bet, or vet. Well, yod, sheen, yesh, or yes, means I will exist, I will be found. And of course, that Hebrew letter bait means house. And so basically, Satan's inferring, I'm going to be found in the house. Well, the castle doctrine has been invoked here. If you get caught in my house, you're going to be really lucky to make it out. Are you following me? Well, I think that Father has that same kind of a mindset regarding his wife. That yod can also infer I will, and the Hebrew letter sheen, bet, shuv, mean return, And basically he's saying, again, I will return. And we know Revelation chapter 12, verse 9 talks about the dragon being cast out, cast down to the earth, and he realizes his time is short, and it says, woe to the inhabitants of the earth. Now, you can argue and say, well, he's not going to be cast down to Mount Sinai. I would venture to say that he probably will be somewhere close to Mount Sinai about the same time you and I arrive to hear the wedding terms again given to us, because Yahweh says, don't you worry about it. I'm going to purge the rebels from among you. Are you hearing me? And if that's the case, while we have a mixed multitude with us that are rebellious, the same shadow pictures there in Exodus, there was a mixed multitude, and guess what? That was the bunch that were given to the pagan idolatrous worship of that golden calf. Well, I think you'll find the same thing will probably happen again. Let's continue. I will sit upon the mount of the congregation. Well, you already looked at the word mountain. It means a high place. And if you add the hay suffix, it's talking about the pregnant one. My goodness. He is going to dwell with, and he's literally inferring, make the bride pregnant in the very intimate domain of Yah himself. That's what it said in the Hebrew language. I will sit upon the mount of the congregation. The word congregation, mo'ad, if you will look at it in the Hebrew language, as a matter of fact, somehow or another that word got inverted when it was printed out in my notes here. If you will look, you'll notice the ayin dalet. Remember the word edan? Same two-letter root stem, mo'ad, from the witness, from the place where you perceive the judgment. Well, it can also mean appointed time, place, or assembly, just like Edan is the place of appointed times. Let's look at the word sides. It's the word Yedrakah, Strong's number 3411. And again, it's translated as a border toward the back or the side, but it's closely related to the word Yerek, which means thigh and loins. Are y'all with me? You remember that the door represents the loins of the man. And this is exactly where the enemy says, I'm going to present myself right out. That's an individual that's got a lot of nerve. Think he's going to come into the intimate place of Yah. And of course he says it'll be in the sides of the north. The word north there is Saphon. The root of it means something or that's hidden, that's secreted away. Well, it's hinting, the whole phrase, the structure in the Hebrew is hinting at an intimate place where the bride and groom meet to be one, echad. Now, again, we looked at the number, the numerical value of a number of these letters, but we wanted to also count the number of letters in this verse, verse 13. And if you count them, the total letters is 63. Remember the Hebrew letter tet, number 9? 6 plus 3 is 9. Well, the factors of 63 are 9 and 7. There's that 9 again. So the tet is clearly seen, that same tet we saw in this Behar on the mountain, the 9th Torah portion. We saw it back in Genesis chapter 1, verse 4. We saw it in Genesis chapter 3. You see it here clearly in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 13. And it just so happens that the number 63 is a numeric value of a Hebrew word known as Abaddon or Abaddon. You see that in Revelation chapter 9:11. He's the king of those that are going to be released out of the bowels of the earth. For what purpose? To wreak havoc in the earth and to establish that kingdom, I firmly believe, to bring himself in a position where he can seek one more time the throne of the Creator. And in the process, ravish his bride. Well, there's another interesting side note here. The word Yedrakah, which means sides, loins, in that particular definition above, you can also see that word. You remember in Daniel chapter 2, verse 32, when Daniel's describing Nebuchadnezzar's vision, and he describes this monster of a man standing up, and the top part of him is gold, and then it talks about the belly and thigh of this image. The belly and thigh is what? The loins, the yerek. Well, in this instance, the belly and thigh are made out of brass. Don't ring a bell to you until you look at what the word brass is in Hebrew. Strong's number 5174, nakash. It's a word for serpent. Well, the loins of the serpent's what's depicted in this vision of this image that Nebuchadnezzar sees standing up. All of those kingdoms that